I'm Junior from Here For You Life Coaching, and we're going to discuss it this morning. We're discussing the left brain, right brain concept, okay, and how they're two modes, not two halves, depending on what you're focusing on. Okay, so if you're focusing on something that requires creativity, for example, that would be right brain. Good morning, Sarah. Good morning, Jay. Good morning, guys. So, if you're doing something like painting, you're doing something creative, something that requires imagination, okay, then you will be pulling, let's say, from the right brain, or you will be operating in right brain mode. Okay, so let's take the left brain first. Okay, so the left brain, what is that responsible for? It's responsible for sequencing, planning, categorizing, problem solving, okay, prediction, linguistic structure, okay, cognitive control, okay, narrative identity. So the people that always, identify with something, okay, I am this, I am that, I am a Republican, I am a Democrat, I am the doctor, I am the attorney, I am the, okay, like that, I am the baker, okay. So these are narrative identities, okay, because it's the narrative that you tell yourself about your identity. And if you keep telling it to yourself over and over, it goes into your subconscious. Therefore, you become what you believe. Okay? So, and this is important because if you're focused on something out here, something exterior, you begin to forget about this one in here. Okay? So, the left brain does math, the left brain manages schedules. Okay? The left brain explains logically, analyzes problems, and maintains identity structure, like we said. Okay, the narrative. Okay, so all of these things, when you're in any of those, involved in any of those things, you're pulling from the left brain and not the right. Okay, but think of this as a mode. Okay, it's a mode because when you focus on painting, you can be in the middle of a painting, okay, and now you're doing right brain, right? Creative, imagination, and then you have to go to the kitchen to get something. Okay, now you're going to be in left brain if you're trying to figure something out. So let's say you go to the kitchen and you want to figure out how much coffee to put in the coffee maker or something like that. Okay, you have to figure it out in proportion. That's math. Okay, now you pull the left brain. So it goes instantaneously between the two. It's not like one person, we use it typically, okay, and I'm talking about non-scientifically, we use it as a figure of speech. Oh, he's right brain, she's right brain, she's left brain, he pulls left brain, that kind of thing. And what we mean by that, okay, just in everyday language is she's creative, he's creative, he pulls right brain, he does creative things more than he does logical things. Or, so he could be a painter, he could be something that requires imagination, that kind of thing, okay? So not literally the right or left brain. We don't want to say that they pull. We want to say that their activities are more creative than they are logical or rooted in logic, rooted in creativity, okay? Those two versus the other. And creativity is the right side, logic is the left side. Okay, so right brain mode, intuition, pattern recognition, emotional attunement. What does that mean? Emotional intelligence. Okay, metaphors, big picture understanding, right brain. So, people that have big picture understanding. Okay, Elon Musk is an example. He looks at the big picture. He can visualize. He can see what things will be like in the future. He can visualize it. Some people cannot do that because they look at it through the lens of the left brain and they go, well, logically this doesn't make sense. Okay, but it's the visionaries of the world that have to set up these things for the people that normally don't see it. Okay, because not everyone is creative. And I had no idea until I did the research back in 2007. And it showed me that, yeah, the majority of the people are not creative. Okay, so anyway, so sensory awareness is also a right brain mode function. Okay, sensory awareness, creativity, empathy, when you feel for someone, okay, emotions, okay, imagination, embodiment, receptivity, okay, receptiveness to receive. So yesterday we were talking about, you know, receiving intuition, okay, receiving from the superconscious or from God, okay. So God does speak to us. God speaks to us every day, but through intuition, okay? It's intuitive. You feel it. You don't hear the voice of God, okay? But you do feel God's messages. Now, if you meditate, you feel God's messages more, okay? Deeper, more deeply, okay? And more often. A lot of people learn to rely on instinct. Okay, and when we say instinct, we're talking about intuition. Okay, they learn to rely on that more than, let's say, you know, their ego, because ego is left brain. Okay, and the ego is always thinks it knows better. Why? Because it has logical data. It carries logical data. It says, okay, 2 plus 2 is 4. Creativity says 2 plus 2 is 4, but it depends on the context. And maybe 2 plus 2 in a certain context would be 6 or whatever. I'm just giving you an idea, okay? So how do these two modes relate to, let's say, channeling, where we're talking about channeling for the last 2 days? And this channeling is where you're getting it from. You're getting this from the right brain, from the superconscious, from God. You're getting this intuitive feeling. But when you're speaking, you're getting this information that you didn't even know you knew. Okay? So when you're speaking and you're relaxed and it's just flowing, you start speaking these things that you didn't even know you knew. And what happens? You get new information. And where is it coming from? It's coming from the superconscious or consciousness. How does that happen? Well, you have beliefs in your subconscious, okay? The beliefs in your subconscious are what the intuitive thoughts from the superconscious are about. Okay, so for example, let's say you're a baker and you bake cakes for a living and you make theme cakes for parties. Okay, let's say you do that. Okay, now intuitive thought or God or superconscious, right, gives you ideas on new themes. And you go, hey, wait a minute, maybe I should do ice hockey cakes. Maybe I should do, because the common ones, NFL, whatever, right? I'm just saying. Maybe I should do, XYZ cakes. Okay? And that's the intuitive thought. Now, if you follow through on intuitive thought and you go, okay, I'll make an XYZ cake. And you experiment and you try it. And all of a sudden people like it. And then they buy it. Okay, now you have responded to intuitive thought, you followed through, and now you're making money on that idea. Creative people experience this all the time. Comedians, entertainers. Okay, I was involved in an industry like that. I used to channel every morning as someone else. I did a character. I did voice acting in the mornings. And what I would do was I would put myself in my old neighborhood. I would imagine, okay, right brain, right side. I would imagine myself back in my old neighborhood, and I would imagine the people and the way they talked and the way they joked around and the way they looked at life, and I could put myself in their shoes, okay? Now we're talking about that empathy thing, right? It's a right brain activity. Okay. Empathy just means that you can see yourself in someone else's place. Okay? And you can understand and you can feel, right? Their point of view, their situation, their understanding. And this is why empathy is so important in our lives. Empathy is important because we need to feel other people. If logic were just, if everything were just logic, it wouldn't make sense to even try to be empathetic. Why? Because it's not logical. Is it logical for you to put yourself in someone else's thoughts and try to see life from their vantage point? No, not at all. Logic would tell you just focus on you, just do you, right? But empathy is very important. Now, when you're talking about empathy, generosity, kindness, all of those things, you're not talking logic. It's not left brain, it's right brain. Okay? When you're channeling, it requires both. Okay, but it does require quieting the left side, not shutting it off. You don't shut it off. You can't shut it off. Just like you can't stop your thoughts. Okay, so people ask me about meditation, and I'm like, no, meditation is not about not thinking. It's not about not thinking. But it is about subduing the left side. So what are we talking about? When you quiet down the left side, you slow down self-editing. Okay, what is self-editing? Self-editing is when you get a thought. Let's say you get a creative thought. Let's say the thought is, I should build my own business. Okay. Let's say it's a creative business. I should build my own cake designing business, whatever, theme cakes, okay? You get that thought. Self-editing is the left brain slowly editing that out. You know, well, how are you going to get the money for that? Well, I don't know how I'm going to get the money for that. Well, how are you going to do this, right? Who are you going to find to help you? You can't do it by yourself. So it'll propose all these ideas to you, logical ideas, and slowly it will rationalize you out of your dreams. And this is why I say, trust your crazy ideas. Okay, and never mind logic. Because when you get these ideas, when you get these aha moments, that's what they call aha moments. When you get these aha moments, they're not coming from the left brain, they're coming from the right. Jesus sits at the right hand of the Father. Okay, remember, abundance is on the right. Why is abundance on the right? Well, imagination is unlimited. That's abundance. Einstein said education will take you from A to Z, but imagination will take you everywhere. Everywhere. Why? Because it's wide open. There's no boundaries. Okay, when you get rid of the negative emotions, your life becomes limitless. Why? Because your limitations are the negative emotions, anxiety, doubt, fear, worry, shame, guilt, those things. They're limitations. They limit you. They start to limit you. What happens? Well, you start to doubt yourself. Whether you're doubting someone else or you're doubting yourself, doubt is the topic in the subconscious. Your subconscious will teach you to doubt. If you start doubting something, say you doubt something today, tomorrow you doubt another thing, the next day you doubt another thing. The subconscious goes, oh, we're doubting? Okay. And it begins to doubt everything, or at least question everything in a negative light, in a doubting form. So now you have a habit, right? The key word is habit in the subconscious. You have a habit of doubting. You can have a habit of anything, good or bad. And that's what I said, that's why I always say, right? Affirmations, meditation, vocalization, visualization can fix anything. Why? Because it works on your subconscious. Where's manifestation from? It comes from the subconscious. But when you control the left brain, and all it means is that your focus shifts from things that are logical to things that are creative, from things that are logical to things that are imaginative, things that you can imagine. That's where you get visionaries from. That's the visualization part, the fourth pillar. Okay, so it reduces judgment. Judgment comes from the left. Okay, especially prejudice, prejudging. When you prejudge, so you haven't experienced it, but you have an opinion about it. That comes from ignorance. When you look at something and you say, oh, this is that, that's that. Now you put a label on it. Now you have limited it, okay? But you have limited it in your mind. You haven't limited, you cannot limit something outside of you. That's beyond your control. But you limit it in here. Because now your perception of that, whatever that is, whatever you have pronounced in judgment. And this is why they say, judge not and ye shall not be judged. Because when you judge something, you place a limitation in here. And what does that do? Well, eventually, your subconscious starts to live in limitation. And pretty soon you wonder, why can't I make money? Why can't I, or make more money, or have a lot of money? Or opportunities, or love. Why doesn't anybody love me? Why doesn't anybody show me love? So it's not just material things. It's love, it's trust, okay? It's bonding. Where does bonding come from? Right or left? It comes from the right. Okay, humans are bonding creatures. This is why the Bible says, cast your net to the right. Because when you live in the right, thank you, Rock Painting Mama. Good morning. Good morning, you guys. When you cast your net to the right, okay, in the name of abundance, to seek abundance, to achieve abundance, you're relying on imagination, right? Because you have to see it before you hold it. Bob Proctor said, if you can see it in your mind, you can hold it in your hand. Let me give you an example. Okay, this is my book. Before I could hold this in my hand, I had to see this in my mind. And for a long time, I couldn't see it. It was in here for many years. You know, and I saw these little miracles happen in my studio, and I said, I gotta write a book about this. I gotta write a book about this. But I didn't see myself as an author, right? Okay, so I had to wrap my mind around it. Okay, now you have to wrap your mind around anything, a new routine, okay, a new process, a new job, a new pattern, because you are embracing a new pattern. You're saying, okay, instead of waking up at, 6 o'clock, I'm going to wake up at 5 o'clock. New pattern. So first you have to establish the pattern. And after 2 weeks, guess what? It works on its own. Okay, if you want to change it, change it. Adjust your schedule, do it in your phone, on your calendar, and then just follow it for 2 weeks. In 2 weeks, it'll be automatic. I have a brand new routine. My routine is a little different. Okay, but I have a brand new routine, and after 2 weeks, the people that are on my Facebook see it, because I do it in my stories. In fact, somebody yesterday told me, "Oh, you're doing it earlier. Your schedule, you move your schedule earlier," and I was like, "Well, actually, I'm later. I don't post my story videos until after the fact. I don't just stop and post a video." Okay. But anyway, so when you start to quiet the left brain, what happens? You reduce self-editing, judgment, overthinking, fear-based monitoring, okay? Looking for fear. The left brain, it looks for fear. Why? Because it logically wants to protect you from it. Okay? And linear forcing. What is linear forcing? Okay, that gets kind of deep, but it forces you to see things in a linear fashion. Okay? Creativity, it's wide open with creativity. Okay, now the right brain mode, right mode, what does that entail? Well, spontaneous speech. Spontaneous speech, which is what intuitive thought is. It's spontaneous. Intuitive thought is spontaneous. When you're speaking to someone and you begin channeling and start saying things that you didn't even know you knew, it's spontaneous. And what can you do in that instance? You relax and you allow it to continue. Why? Because you want the information. You can say it another way. You can say that God intended, okay? Because God works through us, through human beings. Everything comes to us from God through others. And it works the same through us. So you want the information, but the person that you're talking to wants the information. And how do we say this in Christian thinking? We say God meant for that person that we're talking to hear this. And God meant for me to hear this. Why? Because everything works two ways. Nothing is unidimensional in the universe. Have you ever been in a shopping center or like in a store and you hear somebody talking in the next aisle, or let's say down the aisle from you, and it pertains to your life, and you go, whoa, I think I was meant to hear this. If you are aware, if your awareness is sharpened, in other words, I always talk about awareness looking like this. If you're stressed, if you have anxiety, fear, guilt, shame, all the negative emotions, worry, because you're too busy worrying. So your awareness goes into hiding. It doesn't disappear. But when you take all the negative emotions off, what happens? It starts to go like this. It starts to open up. Now you're more aware. Now you hear that person in that aisle in the store and you go, oh, that sounds like information that was meant for me. Coincidence or God? Well, if you believe in God, there's no such thing as coincidence. Because you cannot rationalize. That would be the left brain mode. Okay, you cannot rationalize things. In other words, you cannot say, well, this, these 5 things over here, this was random. This was chance. These 5 things over here, that was God. God did that. God does everything or nothing. And sometimes, if the doors don't open, sometimes if you are trying to achieve something or gain something or get something and it's not happening, if you believe in God, then you believe it wasn't meant to be. But you keep trying. And sometimes you're trying to do the same thing, because this happened to me so many times in life, so many times. You're trying over here to get in the door here. And God goes, no, you go over here. Okay. But we have free will, ego, left brain. We go, no, we want to go over here. We want to go here. Okay. And God goes, no, you go over here. But we don't go over there. Why? Because ego. Eventually, this isn't working, right? So eventually, what do? We go, okay, I'll try to go over here. And you go here and boom, it works. God or chance? Is it random or is it God? I'm here to tell you it's God. Now, I'm not here to tell you what to believe. If you don't believe in God, okay, then it's chance. Then everything in your life is random. Then nothing in your life makes sense. Nothing is connected. It's just, you're just this individual person in this meat suit, walking around, okay, like a pinball machine, getting hit from different bouncing off different things, just bouncing off different circumstances and events. But everything in the universe is intelligent. Everything in the universe has purpose. Everything in the universe has meaning. Everything in the universe works with each other, especially human beings, and that's the superconscious. That's where you're drawing information from. That's where you're getting intuitive thought from. Okay. So in addition to, on the right side, in addition to spontaneous speech, symbolic insights. Okay. Symbolic insights. Emotional clarity. That's where you get emotional intelligence from, the right brain. Subconscious expression. Why subconscious expression? Because the beliefs in your subconscious are it's expressing from the subconscious, but it's working with the superconscious. And that's where you get your intuitive thoughts are based on your beliefs in your subconscious. You have to have the belief in your subconscious. If you have the understanding or the paradigm that, well, there's no God, then, okay, then everything, all the intuitive information that you get from the superconscious doesn't judge. The subconscious does not judge. You're not going to be judged because you don't believe in God. But now everything will have a different theme to it. You'll still get intuitive thought, but it will be about not believing in God. So things that you believe, it will still give you intuitive thought on the things that you believe. Okay, flow states come from the right. What is flow state? It's part imagination. And it's part intuition. When you're in flow state, when you're jamming at work, when you're, so one of my students was a nurse, and she was an administrative nurse. And part of her job was to go through an in tray stacked high with files. And she would have to work through the files and process them every day. After I taught her flow state, after she started to open up, literally open up. So this is closed, okay? And this represents awareness, and this is open, okay? And like I said, when you start removing the negativity, it begins to open. Then she could just go through the files like this, one by one by one, and it was instantaneous because it's a process memorized by your subconscious. If you know how to do one file, you know how to do 2, you know how to do 10, you know how to do 20. It's just systematic. Systems are left brain activities. However, once you know how to perform the system, your subconscious does it in repetition. Your right brain is responsible for the relaxation that it takes to just flow through it, to just jam through it, or however you want to say it, okay? And the right brain is also responsible for intuitive knowing. What's intuitive knowing? Intuitively, you know things. You were born with infinite intelligence. Everything is born with infinite intelligence. You don't have to tell an animal who their natural enemy is. They know. Intuitively, they know. Instinctively, they know. Even the blades of grass are intelligent. So I use another metaphor, and I say, even the cats at the park eat. Because I go to this park. I went yesterday. And these ladies feed the cats every morning. And they feed the cats canned food, expensive canned food. Okay. And when I first saw that 3 years ago, I've been doing this for 3 years. I've been running and walking down there for 3 years. And when I first saw it, I said, wow, even the cats eat. Because I look at things differently. I'm looking at it like God is feeding the cats. Why do I look at it that way? Because I believe in God. I put my faith in God. And I go, wow, even the cats eat. Because they're stray cats. Who would go to the store to buy food for stray cats? Ladies that love cats. And they love cats. And that's their mission. That's their dharma. That's their purpose. To take care of the cats. They've been doing it for 3 years. Every single morning at 4:30. They go with their little wagons. They're pulling their baskets. And they feed the cats. And there's about 40 cats. And they eat better than any other stray cats I've seen. They have a buffet breakfast every morning. Because God is real. Because God is feeding the cats. So if God can feed the cats, God can feed you, right? So this is intuitive or instinctive knowing. The cats know that breakfast is coming tomorrow. They've been trained. It happens over and over and over. Okay, so they expect it. So in the morning, when the lady walks into the park, the cats surround her before she even gets to the place where she feeds them. You see? For human beings, it's in your subconscious. Once something repeats a couple of times, 2 or 3 times, you get used to it. The subconscious learns it, subconscious repeats it. Okay, now how does your brain shift between modes? It depends on your attention. What are you giving your attention to? Is it a creative thing? Is it a logical thing? Okay, energy flows where attention goes. When you place your attention on something, it intensifies. Why? Because at that point you're working on it. At that point, your perception shifts. Okay, you live in a simulation in here. At that point, it becomes your reality. At that point, your perception adjusts to your attention. Your reticular activating system in your brainstem starts to filter out everything else. Why? Because you have focused your attention. People that go from thought to thought to thought, people that are worrying, worry about this, they see this, oh, worry about that. See this, oh, worry about that. They see something, oh, worry about that. Their subconscious has been programmed to worry. So no matter what they see, their reticular activating system keeps showing them things to worry about until they get rid of it. And what do? Well, they end up going to therapy. Why? Because, well, they can't understand why this is happening. Life is a mirror. Then they go to therapy. Then some people give them medicine. Then they take medicine. Then there's a side effect from it. Then they got to take another med, and another one. And then what? Then they're a mess. Why? Well, they didn't understand how they work in the first place, how this one works. The kingdom is within. Jesus Christ said, the kingdom is within. When you believe in the kingdom, when you observe the principles of the kingdom, when you go by the rules of the kingdom, okay, there's a schematic for this one. And it's very simple. I try to break it down to its very most simplest form every morning. It's very simple. In the Bible, it says, in order to, break a bad habit, basically, and I'm paraphrasing, to break a bad habit, you have to fast from it. What is it talking about? You have to just cut it cold, just stop, just turn away, and don't turn back. When you turn away, you're fine. You're walking away, fine. It cannot affect you. Once you go back, it begins affecting you. It sucks you back in again. Why is that so hard? You know, when people say, well, he was addicted for 20 years and he was doing good, and all of a sudden his demons got him. Not his demons. Subconscious. Okay? Because the old paradigm starts pulling you back if the new paradigm isn't strong enough, not enforced enough, not repeated enough, not provided with enough maintenance. So this is what maintenance looks like. Okay, maintenance looks like this. Okay, these are affirmations. This is not journaling. Okay, this is affirmations. That's maintenance to your subconscious. When you feel yourself slipping, maybe you're on a diet, maybe something simple like that. You're on a diet. All of a sudden, you start eating sweets. Right? It's addictive. Why? Dopamine. Okay? Hormones. So you get another one. Wow, that's good. Oh, get another. Whoa, that's good. Pretty soon you're in a habit, okay? And pretty soon what happens? Well, the result from the habit is the pounds. Okay, the initial act is eating candy or sweets, whatever. Okay. So you can eat a certain amount, but when it becomes a problem, there's a habit. So how do you get rid of the habit? Reinforce the subconscious with affirmations. I am so happy and grateful now that, right? I enjoy foods that are not sweet sugar based, or however you want to word it. But it's the opposite of what's going on. Just write it to the opposite of what's going on. Speak it into existence. Read it out loud. So you write it early in the morning when your brain is in theta state, before you go to bed at night. Pick up your tablet, okay? Speak it out loud. Now you have spoken it into your subconscious. So you have written it into your subconscious, you have spoken it into your subconscious, and overnight your subconscious thinks about it all night long. So focused, narrow attention is the product of the left hemisphere of the brain, logic. Open panoramic awareness is the right. And this is where meditation comes in, that you have to do in order to experience God's kingdom. This kingdom in here. God's kingdom is not up there. God's kingdom is not out there. It's in here. So what are you going to experience? You're going to experience the expansiveness of all creation in here. But you have to enter into meditation. It tells you this in the Bible. Jesus said it. When Jesus said, I am in you, that's what he was talking about. I am is the key words. I am is a complete sentence. I am is the reference to this one. So, emotional safety, where does that come from? Right mode. Safety, openness, right side. Threat, control, left side. The left side looks for threats. The left side is logic. Is that a logical threat? Okay, sound the alarm. Now adrenaline starts pumping. Now your attention goes there. Now you see the threat. Now you respond. You become reactionary through the left side of the brain. What I'm really doing is I'm giving you a laundry list of why you should cast your net to the right, why you should join Jesus, whose internal instructions. You're not going to learn this in Sunday school. They will not teach you this in church. There's no time. And if they teach you this, why would you need to go and donate and be involved in programs? And you could spend that on your life. I'm not saying the church is bad. I'm saying it's a business. It's a 501c3 business. And more we're seeing how corruption happens in these organizations. Not just religion. Organizations. Because when you have groups of people, you have money. You have power. Power corrupts. And what happens when power corrupts? It has a tendency to corrupt. Why? Because there's an abundance of power. Because it's built up. Now what? Well, the tendency for absolute power and absolute corruption due to power is there. The potential is higher. Does every organization suffer that? No. But a lot of them do, and it's more and more. You see it in the news. All right, so humans enter the right side, okay? So neuroscience, what does neuroscience say? It says that you enter the right side during channeling, for example, in flow states. You achieve flow state on the right. These are more reasons to cast your net to the right. Deep meditation, trance speech. What is trance speech? That's when you're in a deep meditation and you begin speaking. You'd be surprised what you hear. This is not demonic. This comes from your subconscious. You're not channel unless you deliberately try to channel a demon or a negative entity. But in that case, that's where your focus is. You're focused on your imagination in that instance with something you've heard before, something you've seen before, and you go, okay, I want to try to channel that. Good luck on that. Those things don't always end well. Automatic writing. Do you know what automatic writing is? It comes from your subconscious. So your subconscious holds all the data from every experience in your life. It knows your purpose. Even if you don't know what your purpose is, you want to find your purpose, get a legal pad, relax your hand, and start writing questions as if you were speaking to God. Ask God, dear God, or dear universe, or dear source, and start writing. Ask the question. You're going to get the thought. You're going to get, a thought about the answer. Write it down and keep writing question and answer, and pretty soon, if your hand is relaxed enough, you will just automatically be writing without thinking. Same as channeling, that's the same thing, and it will just keep going, and you just keep writing. You just keep writing. Inventors have gotten formulas this way. Scientists have gotten equations this way. Inventors have invented things this way. But these things are coming from your subconscious. So let's say, for example, you've studied a lot in your life. There's a lot of information in here. Can you just bring it up like that? No, you're going to have to think about it. But when you start writing and asking questions, it's coming from the subconscious, from all of your data throughout your whole life. And it's coming from the superconscious, which operates on the data that is in your subconscious and the intuitive thought or feelings that come with that. Improvisation comes from the right. I can't tell you, I used to do comedy a long time ago because I wanted to make people laugh. I wanted to have fun. That's what I like to do for fun. And I can't tell you how many times on stage in the middle of a established routine, I start improvising automatically. And something says, do this, do that, and I follow. Because I'm open. When I'm on stage, I try to be in flow state so that everything flows correctly. And I follow. And I get a new comedy bit. Why? Because I follow the intuitive information. I did this every morning on morning radio. I did this all the time. All I have is the picture, the final result, okay? The final result, the picture of what it is I'm channeling. And in my case, it was a local guy, stereotypical local guy. And all I did was relax. So like this, okay, like this, okay, and then relax like that. So this here is your awareness. When you relax, your awareness goes like this. Your focused energy for a visual, just for a visual, is like this. If you want to channel, you're going to have to relax this. Why? Because you're focused. Because this is the left brain, focused. The right brain is creativity, intuition, flow state. You're going to have to relax the left side, the focus. And then it just comes. And I used to tell the guy that I worked with, I used to work with a couple of guys, sometimes a guy and a girl, but I used to tell them, I'm just channeling. Sometimes it was like, wow, where did you get that from? I'm just channeling. But when you get used to channeling, right? When you get used to it, you go, oh, okay, I can just allow. And this is why you get rid of resistance. There's so many reasons why you get rid of resistance. When you're free of resistance, you belong to the right hemisphere. You belong at the right side of the Father. You cast your net to the right side. Because now there's no resistance. Resistance is involved with reason, with logic. It's a left brain activity. Resistance. This is why the journey of Moses depicts the migration from the left in here, from the left brain to the right brain. That whole entire journey. It makes a good story in the book. It's in the Bible. It's a good Bible story. But the story means something. All the little details in the story, okay, there's some morals in there, there's some values in there, there's some wisdom in there. But the story itself is esoterically within. Everything is within. The kingdom is within. So in this state, on the right, accessing the right side brain, or the tendencies that we get from the right, the prefrontal cortex begins to relax. The prefrontal cortex thinks 80,000 thoughts a day. So what happens? Well, maybe now you're thinking 60,000 thoughts. Does it matter? Yes, it matters. This is why we do the breathing exercise, the panting exercise. It relaxes the frontal lobe. Because this is your processing system. This is your operating software, the prefrontal cortex. Your subconscious is the hard drive where the programs are stored, the systems are stored. Your superconscious, the superconscious is the network that we're all plugged into. Consciousness, source, God, creation. What else happens? Well, you get an increased limbic prefrontal cortex or prefrontal connectivity. What does that mean? That means your connection to the superconscious is enhanced. It's stimulated. Why? Because now all the thoughts, the worry, the negativity, all of that has been relaxed. Now there's an open channel, and that's why they call it channeling. Now you have greater access to associative networks because it's open. You're open. If you're not open, then you're restricting something. You're saying, okay, this is like this. You're doing this. These are boundaries. Do you need boundaries in life? You don't need to set them. They happen naturally according to your beliefs in your subconscious. Boundaries will naturally be set in your life. Because if your core values tell you that drugs are no good, you don't have to set a boundary to stay away from drugs. You don't have to say, well, I'm going to fight drug people. Well, I'm going to do battle against the cartel. No, you don't have to do that at all. You will just not participate. It's just not part of your world. It doesn't exist for you. Why? Because it's a core belief in your subconscious. That's just an example. It's just an example. But whatever your core beliefs are, is what you're going to be operating from. The roots of the tree are the subconscious core beliefs, which form your paradigm. The trunk of the tree, which is the way you see life, your worldview, the way you look at the world, which dictate your actions, and your actions produce results. Okay? So these biological conditions, right brain activity, are precisely what the spiritual traditions call higher self, okay, intuition, superconscious, higher self, intuition, inner knowing, channeling, guidance, universal connection, all of that. Because you feel connected on the right side. And this is why you are urged in religion to move to the right side, to live in the right side. Why? Because that's where life is easier. If you're living on the left side or from the left side or pulling from the qualities of the left brain, then you're rooted in logic. Then you're telling yourself, there's only this is the way right here. This is the only way. This is the only way I can do this. This is the only way. Okay, now if you're part of a corporation, yeah, you have to do this. If you're part of a system, you have to conform to the system. You have to think like the system. But what happens when you've been in the system for a while? It's memorized in your subconscious. But over here on the right side, where Jesus sits, where the apostles cast their net, where they cast their net, on the right side, there is no limitation. There is no confinement. Over here, there's expansion. Can you still function in these parameters? Of course you can. But you go here for work, you go here as a person when you check out. And this is what my clients learn. I'm not here to sell you anything. Don't worry, you're not going to get a sales pitch. Okay? But this is what my clients learn. This is work. You go to work, you perform like this, you think like this, you operate like this, you do this. When you're done with work, you relax it and you go back to here. And this represents you can be in the world and not of the world. Christians say that. But I see so many Christians like this. Why? Because their subconscious has memorized this. They work for the corporation. They identify with the corporation. They identify with the title. They identify with the position. They identify with work. And because work happens more than personal life, they become work. They identify with work. So, why does this matter for your work? Well, it's important to know the difference between reality and fantasy. It's knowing the difference between what's possible and what's practiced, and how to drop these boundaries at the appropriate time after work. How do you do that? You relax. But if you're too keyed up and living in this system, now you bring this into your personal life. Now you bring this in the door when you come home. And you know this because your kids are stressed out now. Now you brought it home. Okay, everything out here reacts to everything in here. If you're still living in here, if you're still in this system, when you get home, in your personal world, in your family life, it's going to affect your family. Why? Because they're all going to react to what's in here. And this is what's in here instead of this. Okay, this is process. This is love. This is formula. Okay, this is inclusiveness. This is boundaries. This is love. Why? Because love is unconditional. There's no conditions. Over here, there's a lot of conditions because it's set for you. Boundaries, conditions, parameters, systems, family, love, acceptance, openness, freedom. So you can be in the system and not of the system, but you need to not be of the system in here. And a lot of people think, oh, yeah, okay, yeah, not, yeah, when I go home, it's my personal time. Really? Then why are your children like that? And people don't understand. They don't understand that their children are their mirrors. Okay, so when their children are using drugs, when their children are running wild, it's a reaction to what's in their parents. It could be too much of this, too much regulation. It could be not enough regulation, but oftentimes, if you're trying to conform your children to you, if you're trying to conform your children to your ideology, if you're trying to conform, just know that they have their own identities. So you don't raise your children, you guide your children, you teach your children. If you don't have the patience because you're too busy here in the corporation, too busy here in the structure, too busy here in the system, then this creates a problem. So channeling isn't magic, it's not voodoo, it's not any of that, okay? Intuition isn't random. Okay, it's not a random thing that will give you a random result. Okay, follow your intuition. It's there. You will know the truth and the truth will set you free. But in order to know the truth, you have to be open to it. Because if you're like this, okay, the truth could be out here, and you're not getting it because you're here. This is man-made versus God-made. God made this. Man took it and said, okay, let's get some parameters together. Let's get a system together. Let's get a corporation together. Okay, we're going to do this. Is this good? Yes, it's good. But it's good for what it's good for. But outside of this, there's God-made. This is God-made. The corporation is man-made. If you believe in God, you believe in God-made. You understand what the truth is. How do you do that? Affirmations, meditation, vocalization, visualization. It fixes anything and everything. How do you do that? Meditate. Be still for 10 minutes a day. In 2 weeks, you'll understand what I'm saying. 10 minutes a day. Go to your happy place. Close your distractors. Sit and feel God. God will explain it to you. God will guide you. God will give you what you need. God will bring what's necessary. God will open the doors as you take the steps. But if you don't go within, into the kingdom, you will not experience the expansiveness of all creation because it's in here. It's not out there. There's some marvelous things out there, but those are man-made. Besides nature, okay, there's only nature out there and something from someone else's in here out there. That's all that's out there. The kingdom of heaven is in here. And when you focus on the kingdom, and when you seek first the kingdom, all else will be added unto you according to what you believe in your subconscious. If you're not getting what you want, you don't believe in it because it can't happen if you don't. So affirmations, meditation, vocalization, visualization will fix all of that. Okay, so I am being told to see you tomorrow. Thank you, Jay. Thank you for moderating. Jay is also nice for you to speak on raising children. Always on a roller coaster with raising children. Yeah, so don't think raise, think guide. Guide your children. You're very welcome, Darlene. You're very welcome. Thanks for joining us, you guys. Okay, I gotta go. I gotta get to clients this morning, but it's been fun and productive, and we'll see you guys tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. Hawaii time. Okay, so from Hawaii, we say blessings. God